Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, I'm bringing you the latest developments in the turbulent love story between the single mother Hoai and police officer Hung. In the previous episode, after many days apart, Hung was fortunate to receive leave and enjoyed a brief reunion with Hoai and little Tony. Just when their happiness seemed complete, the moment of parting arrived once again. Today, he must return to his unit to continue his duties, leaving behind Hoai's longing gaze and Tony's tender embrace filled with reluctance. The home suddenly falls into silence, with only an unending ache of yearning left behind. While Hoai struggles to cope with that emptiness, an unexpected twist occurs. Du, the man who has repeatedly failed to win her heart, appears once more. But unlike before, he is no longer hasty or reckless. Instead, he shows a clear determination and cunning plan. Du knows Hung is away, and this is his chance to slowly insert himself into the fragile life of Hoai and her son. He begins with seemingly harmless acts of concern, asking after her, offering help, even trying to get close to Tony so that the boy quickly trusts him. Step by step, he hopes to use this persistence to sow doubt in Hoai's heart, shaking the firm trust she holds for Hung. Will long-distance love be strong enough to keep Hoai and Hung together? Or will Du's scheme succeed, pulling Hoai and Tony away from the arms of the man she has faithfully waited for? All will be revealed in the upcoming episodes, so stay tuned until the end of today's video for the full story. After a brief but blissful time together, Hung finally had to face the moment of parting. He sat quietly on the chair, watching Hoai busily prepare breakfast, watching Tony with his round, curious eyes crawling clumsily around the house, babbling in innocent sounds. The child could not yet speak, but somehow he seemed to sense the change in the air. Tony clung tightly to his mother's legs, his tiny hands reaching out again and again, as if trying to hold on to his father's fading presence. Hung stepped forward and lifted his son into his arms. Tony nestled his head against his father's chest, letting out a few muffled sounds as though he wanted to speak but could not form words. That innocence only deepened the ache in his father's heart. Hung knew the boy could not understand that he was about to leave, yet the restlessness in those clear eyes pierced him like a needle. Beside him, Hoai forced a smile, but her reddened eyes betrayed her sorrow. Taking a deep breath, Hung steadied his voice as he gave Hoai his instructions. He told her to take care of her health, to look after Tony, and not to hesitate to call him if anything happened. Though his words were firm, each one was heavy with regret. He forced himself to turn away quickly, for if he lingered even a moment longer, he feared he would not have the courage to leave the woman and the child he loved so dearly. Back at his unit, Hung had hardly a day to rest. His superiors, placing their trust in him, assigned him a series of new duties, broader in scope and heavier in responsibility. This time, he and his comrades were tasked with surveying remote areas, where winding dirt roads snaked around the mountains, and where the ethnic villagers still lacked both knowledge and basic living conditions. His mission was more than simple instruction. It required patience and persistence, sitting for hours by the fire to keep warm, listening carefully to villagers' stories, then gently explaining the dangers of alcohol, the consequences of early marriage. Hung also worked with local authorities on family planning, guiding young people toward building a healthier and more civilized way of life. He understood well that every word he spoke was like a seed sown. It might not sprout immediately, but one day it would grow, helping to change an entire village. Hung told himself, if people can live with less hardship, if children can go to school, then my efforts will truly have meaning. Yet despite the weight of his work, with every step he took through the sun and wind of the mountains, Hung carried with him an unending longing. Each time he saw groups of Highland children playing together, he thought of Tony, the boy who could not yet speak, who only knew to raise his small hands to be held, and whose shining eyes followed his father everywhere. Each time those eyes came to mind, along with Hoai's gentle smile, Hung reminded himself that he must be strong. For only by fulfilling his duty to the people could he return, stand tall before the woman he loved, and the child he cherished above all else. That afternoon, after tidying the yard and planting a few new rows of vegetables, Hoai felt exhausted, yet strangely at ease. She brushed the soil from her sleeves and stepped onto the porch. Just as she looked up, she was startled to see Du leaning against the old wooden gate. His quiet arrival made her freeze for a moment, unsure of what to say. It had been quite a while since Du last came by, and his sudden appearance weighed down her heart. Du looked much the same as before, a faded shirt, slightly tousled hair, a face trying to appear sincere. A faint smile hovered on his lips, but his eyes carried something harder to read. Hoai faltered briefly, then regained her composure. Believing that things between them were no longer as tense, she politely nodded and invited him inside. The small house still carried the scent of damp earth and fresh leaves from the garden. Hoai quickly lit the stove to boil water, then poured out 2 cups of green tea, placing them on the rustic wooden table. Meanwhile, Tony lay in his cradle, waving his tiny hands in the air, his curious eyes fixed on the unfamiliar man. The little boy could not yet speak, only babbling in broken sounds, as if asking his mother a question. They sat down together. The air felt awkward, broken only by the sound of the tea simmering. Du was the first to speak. Slowly, as though weighing each word, he said, "I heard Hung has been sent away on duty, leaving just you and the child at home. I imagine it must be hard, working while raising him alone. So today I came, just to see how you both are. If you have any difficulties, don't hesitate to tell me." Hoai lowered her gaze, her fingers circling the rim of the warm cup. The steam rose, tinting her cheeks pink. After a pause, she smiled faintly, her voice calm but resolute. "It's true that with Hung away, there are many hardships. But I'm used to it now. My son and I are managing well enough. Thank you for your concern, but I don't need help at the moment." Du's smile faded. He stayed silent for a while, then suddenly pulled a small phone and a neatly wrapped bundle of cash from his pocket. Placing them in front of her, he spoke with a mix of guilt and urgency. "Please, take these. The phone is so you can reach me easily if anything happens. And the money, use it for Tony. After all, he is my child too. I have a responsibility to contribute, not just stand by and watch." Hoai froze, her eyes flickering with layers of emotion, surprise, confusion, sorrow, and finally, resolve. She gently pushed both items back toward him, shaking her head. "I can't accept these. My son and I can manage on our own. You don't need to worry. I hope you understand." Her tone was soft, sparing him offense, yet every word was like a door closing. Du sat in silence, his hands clasped tightly together. His face betrayed disappointment, his eyes clouded with sadness, yet deep within lingered a stubborn glint. Forcing a faint, awkward smile, he muttered, "I only want what's best for you and the child." The late afternoon sun streamed through the window, falling across Du's tense features. Inside him, a different thought was stirring. Even in rejection, he saw clearly that Hoai was still fighting life's struggles alone. The more he witnessed her strength, the more he yearned to break through it. Hung was far away, and that emptiness was the very chance he had been waiting for. After Hoai's firm refusal, Du had no choice but to leave. His figure slowly disappeared behind the bamboo hedge, each heavy step seeming to carry 1,000 thoughts. On the muddy red dirt road, the setting sun stretched his shadow long and winding. Yet inside Du, the flame of determination was not extinguished. On the contrary, Hoai's firmness only fueled his resolve to get closer. He told himself this love could not end with a single rejection. In the days that followed, every afternoon, when birdsong echoed across the distant hills, Diep's figure would appear again at Hoai's gate. At first, he only brought small gifts, a bundle of fresh vegetables still glistening with dew, a river fish just caught, or sometimes a few country cakes wrapped in banana leaves. Hoai often hesitated to accept, but under Diep's persistence and his explanation that "I just want to contribute something for the child," she eventually found it hard to refuse. Over time, the gifts began to change. Diep started bringing household necessities, bottles of cooking oil, bags of rice, packets of seasoning, all carefully packed. He also bought new clothes for Tony, choosing bright and colorful outfits for children, and occasionally brought small wooden toys. Though Tony could not yet speak, each time he received something, he babbled in delight, his tiny hands clapping with joy at the new toy. Seeing her son happy, Hoai found it difficult to turn away completely. "I just want our child to have a better life," Diep would often say, his voice slow but resolute. Each time, he would bend down to stroke Tony's head, his eyes filled with thought. In those moments, Hoai remained silent. She knew Tony needed affection, and letting him feel his biological father's presence was not wrong. Yet deep inside, she still maintained an invisible distance, never letting Diep get too close. Diep noticed this. He knew Hoai had not truly opened her heart, but the fact that she did not reject his presence outright was enough to give him hope. He began extending their conversations, not just polite questions, but subtle reminders of the past, occasionally slipping in tender words. "Don't work too hard, if you're tired, let me help." His gaze lingered on her every gesture, especially when fatigue unconsciously showed on her face after a long day's labor. One evening, as the sky turned golden orange and the wind rustled gently through the bamboo at the gate, Tony lay fast asleep in his cradle. The silence was broken only by the chirping of insects in the garden. Diep sat on the porch, facing Hoai. He did not rush. Slowly, he lifted his steaming cup of tea, set it down again, and fixed his eyes intently on her. "Hoai," his voice dropped, tinged with a slight tremor, "all these years, I've never stopped thinking of you. I know you've endured so many hardships. I want to be by your side, to care for you and Tony. I promise. I'll be a good father, and if you give me the chance, I'll be a good husband too." The air grew heavy, silence stretching long enough to make the sound of her heartbeat almost audible. Hoai unconsciously gripped her blouse, her gaze drifting, her face tense. Inside her, emotion surged, surprise at his sudden confession, confusion at his promises, and anxiety about the future. Her heart trembled, for she knew that once she accepted anything from Diep, the path ahead would change forever. Startled by the sudden confession, Hoai flinched. Her hand, resting lightly on the table, was suddenly grasped by Diep. Her breath caught, her eyes widened in shock. But immediately, with firm resolve, she pulled her hand back, the decisive gesture drawing a clear line. In her gaze was both determination and gentleness, meant to avoid causing harm, but also leaving no room for misunderstanding. Her voice trembled, yet each word came out sharp as a blade. "Diep, I'm sorry, but I love only Hung. In my heart, from the beginning until now, there has never been room for anyone else. No matter how long he is away, I will wait. This love cannot change, and neither will I." Her rejection fell heavily, like the sound of wind striking the eaves, thickening the air inside the small house. Diep sat frozen, his hands clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His face paled, his lips quivered as if to argue, his eyes flashing with resentment, but all of it was quickly masked by a forced, bitter smile. He tilted his head, voice steady yet tinged with sarcasm, anguish, and stubbornness. "You're too naive, Hoai. Do you really believe Hung, far away, will remain faithful? Out there, temptations surround him. Do you think he still remembers you and Tony the way you imagine? Look at me, I'm right here, caring for you and the child every day. I can give you a stable, abundant life. Why waste your time waiting for someone who might not even think of you anymore?" Those words stabbed deep into her heart. Hoai stayed silent, her hand tightening on her blouse, her eyes trembling. For a fleeting moment, the buried fears of distance and endless loneliness surged back, knotting her chest. But then, she drew a deep breath, and her eyes suddenly shone with unshakable resolve. She lifted her head, staring straight at Diep, her voice clear and unwavering. "Say whatever you want, but I believe in Hung. I believe in our love and in him. I will never give up on this. Please leave, and don't ever speak such words again." Her words rang cold and resolute, freezing the atmosphere. The cicadas outside kept buzzing, the wind rustled through the thatched roof, but all seemed to fade, leaving only the tense silence within the small house. Diep let out a hollow laugh, more bitter than ever. His lips trembled, his eyes flickered with profound disappointment, yet within them still burned stubborn defiance, as though making a vow to himself. Slowly, he stood, his heavy steps carrying him to the porch. His shadow stretched long on the red earth, blending into the fading gold of the evening sun. Before leaving, Diep turned back once, his voice hoarse but fierce, more like a vow to himself than to her. "I won't give up. Tomorrow, and every day after, I will keep coming, for you, for Tony. I hope one day you'll understand." With that, he walked away without looking back. Hoai sat still at the wooden table, her hand pressed against her chest to calm her racing heart. Her breath trembled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. In the cradle, Tony slept soundly, his innocent face peaceful, unaware of the storm brewing around his mother. Hoai gazed at her child, a mixture of steadfastness and sorrow swelling in her heart, as if reminding herself to be stronger than ever. Though Hoai had firmly rejected Diep's affection, his words, casting doubt that Hung might not stay faithful while away, continued to echo in her mind. That evening, after lulling Tony to sleep in the old bamboo cradle, she sat quietly in the corner of the house, her eyes drifting toward the small window. Outside, the empty yard lay under pale moonlight, the night breeze rustling through the banana leaves with a sound like the sigh of the earth itself. In her heart, a faint unease swelled, threading through every breath, every beat of her heart. She knew Hung was a good man, calm, upright, and full of responsibility. He had never once disappointed her. Those very qualities made him the only anchor, the unwavering trust in her storm-filled life. Yet because he was so good, so admirable in the eyes of others, Hoai could not help but worry. In that faraway posting, how many other eyes might be on him? Might younger, more graceful women try to enter his life? The thought stung, as if an invisible hand gripped her heart. As night deepened, the small house grew even emptier. Tony slept soundly, his steady breaths the only comfort to her. But Hoai could not close her eyes. Restless, she lay awake, her mind filled with Hung's image, his resolute face, gentle gaze, warm smile, all vivid yet distant. "Does he think of me as much as I think of him?" she whispered inwardly, gently stroking Tony's hair as though seeking comfort herself. Then, in that moment, she tried to steady herself. She recalled the days they had weathered floods together, when Hung risked his life to help villagers and still rushed back to her and Tony. She remembered the cold, rainy nights when Hung called without fail, just to hear Tony's baby babble. Those memories rose like sturdy beams, rebuilding the wall of trust in her heart. She told herself, "We've survived so many hardships, this distance cannot break us." It was a silent vow, her way of staying strong through the lonely days. While Hoai clung to her faith, elsewhere Du nurtured a starkly different thought. Though rejected again and again, he never wavered. On the contrary, her steadfastness only spurred him to fight harder. To him, Hoai's love for Hung was a fortress, but one that had begun to show fine cracks. If he could dig deep into them, the wall would eventually collapse. Du no longer wanted to stop at small gifts or surface-level concern. He began plotting more carefully, winning Tony's trust with gestures of fatherly affection, while gradually sowing seeds of doubt in Hoai's mind. He believed that all it would take was a single weak moment, a flicker of shaken trust, and he could seize his chance to step in and claim what he desired. The next evening, Du walked alone along the village path. The rice field swayed in the breeze, the earthy scent of mud drifting through the air. A faint smile curved his lips, half content, half sinister. His eyes gleamed with determination, edged with dangerous ambition. In his mind, the fragments of a larger plan were coming together, clearer than ever. He was certain that with persistence, calculation, and sheer daring, one day Hoai would belong to him, despite the unwavering faith she still placed in Hung. The growing distance was becoming the harshest trial in the love between Hoai and Hung. Each night, as the cold wind slipped through the cracks of the door, she sat quietly on the porch, holding Tony in her arms, reassuring herself that Hung still remembered her, that their love remained as strong as ever. Yet Du's words, like sharp blades, kept echoing in her mind, weighing her down with worry. Could distance weaken a trust once thought unbreakable? Could a man as upright and capable as Hung truly withstand the gaze of other women in a faraway land? While Hoai wrestled with doubt and longing, Du refused to give up. On the contrary, he grew more dangerous. Each rejection only pushed him to plan more carefully. No longer satisfied with small gifts or simple gestures, he began laying the groundwork for something greater, winning over Tony, planting seeds of suspicion in Hoai's heart, and waiting for the moment when her trust would crack. For Du, even the smallest gap in the fortress called trust would be enough to bring the whole love tumbling down, opening the way for him to claim Hoai. Can Hoai remain steadfast in her devotion to Hung, despite Du's sweet words and relentless persistence? And what does the next scheme do is secretly plotting to steal her heart? All will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to discover the unexpected twists that lie ahead.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và cảnh sát Hùng. Mọi người thân mến, thì ở trong tập trước như mọi người cũng đã biết thì Hùng đã về với Hoài Ca và hai người có những phút giây bên nhau thật là hạnh phúc. Tuy nhiên sau đó thì anh phải nhanh chóng quay lại với công việc ở trên cơ quan, vì Hùng bây giờ chỉ mới làm ở cơ quan mới và chỉ được nghỉ phép vài ngày thôi, nên anh phải nhanh chóng quay lại cơ quan của mình để tiếp tục công việc. Tuy nhiên trong khi mà Hùng đi xa thì Đô, một người đàn ông mà thực ra là bố đẻ của Tony, cũng là người đã yêu thầm Hoài Ca từ rất lâu. Người này đã nhân cơ hội này đến và muốn chia rẽ tình cảm của Hoài Ca và Hùng với mục đích là có thể giành được tình yêu của Hoài Ca. Vậy thì liệu mọi chuyện tiếp theo sẽ diễn ra thế nào? Hoài Ca sẽ có quyết định như thế nào? Thì mời mọi người đón xem trong phần tiếp theo ở tập sau nha.